Imagine you're a professional Siege roster. Now, you finish the season second last, don't have to play a relegation match, and still have to hand your pro spot over to a challenger roster. Why? Well, because your org has abandoned you, and as per some crazy rules, you're no longer allowed to compete. But here's the best part. The roster that you're handing your pro spot over to also doesn't have an org. That's what happened to eUnited. Look, it's been a long time since I've seen the Siege community this unanimously disappointed. And honestly, I understand why. Okay, so before we dive into things, please make sure, guys, that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hop in the comments to let us know if you want more Siege content just like this. It really helps both the Don't At Me team and me specifically decide what kind of Siege content you guys want to see. Okay, so in order to understand how all of this went down, we need to go back to October 30th, which is the day that eUnited announced that they would be dropping their Siege roster. Thankfully, we were able to speak with the former coach of eUnited, Meepy, who helped us construct a timeline of sorts. Now, some of what he told us is already public, some not. Either way, we're gonna walk you through what he told us happened. According to Meepy, eUnited's decision to back out of Siege was made for a variety of reasons. Now, some of them had to do with COVID, others to do with Ubisoft's handling of the North American League as a whole. Some of them were even left confidential. Now, apparently, after relaying their decision to Ubisoft, eUnited told their roster that as long as a new org came along to purchase the license that eUnited had previously owned, the roster would be able to remain in the NAL. The ex-eUnited roster then reached out to Ubisoft on October 31st for support. They asked Ubi whether they'd be helping to move the sale of said license along, and on the same day, Ubi responded that they would be working to, quote, find ex-eUnited a new home. Apparently, Meepy proceeded to reach out to one of Ubisoft's senior esports representatives in the hope of getting some concrete reassurance that as long as some new org came along to purchase said license, the ex-eUnited boys wouldn't be in peril of losing their jobs. And from what he told us, he received no answer whatsoever. Okay, so fast forward to November 5th, which is when rumors began to spread that ex-eUnited were in fact going to lose their spot, and that everything they'd been told by both Ubisoft and eUnited themselves wasn't true, which Meepy spoke about on stream.
When we first heard these rumors, if we were to believe that they were true, we assumed that the 8th place position, we were told that Rent-Free would get promoted and that Tempo would take our position as 7th. As that was a rumor we heard from another team a week and a half ago.
Apparently, after hearing said rumors, ex-eUnited proceeded to reach out to Ubisoft yet again through a private official channel, and yet again received no response whatsoever. They tried the official channel one final time on November 9th to no avail, only to find that the senior esports representative that Meepy had previously reached out to had finally decided to reply, claiming that while Ubisoft couldn't tell them anything as of yet, they'd be in contact soon. But they wouldn't be. Not until November 11th, that is, when Ubisoft unveiled in the aforementioned private official channel that a blog post would be going up shortly explaining everything. 15 minutes later, the blog post goes up, and it's official. ex-eUnited are jobless. Now, what do we mean by jobless? Well, as it turns out, spots in Siege's newly formed North American League are owned by orgs, something which wasn't true of Pro League. So when eUnited backed out, the roster who'd previously represented them lost all claims to the spot they'd worked so hard to earn. What's even crazier is that they even lost the chance to play for it. You see, according to the league's official rulebook, the departure of a team from the US division automatically places them last place within the division. This means that the team eUnited was ahead of, Tempo Storm, finished the stage in second last, thus avoiding relegation. What's more, for some incomprehensible reason, ex-eUnited's disqualification meant that they wouldn't have to play the relegation match between the last placed NAL roster and the top seeded challenger roster, a lineup known as Rent-Free. Instead, Ubi simply gave the spot to Rent-Free. Not only were eUnited not actually in last place, but Ubisoft didn't even give them the courtesy of playing the relegation match that the last seeded team is entitled to play. The reason? because they weren't represented by an org.
Unfortunately, Rent-Free being promoted to the 8th place spot, from what I am aware, now keep in mind, I'm not aware of much, means nothing. But the fact that they've come out and just straight up kicked us out the league is just the frustrating part. The reason why it's frustrating is because I've been trying to get Ubisoft to talk to me for the past couple of weeks just to confirm that everything that I was told when eUnited left still stands.
Here's the truly messed up thing though. Rent-Free also weren't represented by an org. This means that Ubi bounced an NAL roster for not being signed, took away their chance to play for their pro spot, and just gave it to a Challenger League roster who also wasn't signed, in the hope that some org would just come along and sign them. Like, what? Oh, and the truly awful thing is that most of the ex-eUnited guys found out they were jobless the same way we did. On Twitter.
I sent emails to very high positions, and the only response I got was, "We can't tell you, we'll tell you soon." The next communication that I got from Ubisoft was this release. What a way to find out that you've just lost your job.
Worst of all was Meepy, who, as he mentioned on stream, had just sat down to eat dinner with his girlfriend.
I cooked myself dinner. I sat down on the couch with my girlfriend. We're both eating, and I get a text message asking me, what has Ubisoft done? And I'm confused.
It was especially bad for Rexon, who'd also fallen prey to the Luminosity scandal back in April. This man was cheated out of 2 pro spots in the span of just over 6 months. Suffice it to say, the Siege community was pissed. Casters, hosts, analysts, community figures, competitors, and content creators came out in droves to express their dissatisfaction with Ubisoft's handling of the situation. And honestly, I completely understand why. I'm sorry, but no matter which way you slice it, this is a very bad look for Ubi, the NAL, and everyone involved. That's not lost on them apparently, since Wei Yu, the director of Siege Esports, came out on Twitter and addressed Ubisoft's need to do and be better. So where does this leave ex-eUnited? Well, not in a great spot. As of right now, ex-eUnited are free agents. This means that they weren't just relegated all the way down to Challenger League, they were removed from competition entirely. If they wanted to reclaim their pro spot, they would have to re-qualify for Challenger and win it.
The fairest thing would be for Tempo to play Rent-Free for relegations and us keep the 7th place spot that we f***ing earned, that we fought for, that we played for, that we won.
There are also some other unanswered questions, like how these rumors began spreading in the first place. Is it possible that Ubisoft began discussing this with Rent-Free while keeping eUnited in the dark? If so, why? Could there be some looming org in the background? And if so, what's stopping them, or any org, from signing ex-eUnited instead of Rent-Free?
As far as I am aware, an organization has to purchase the license for basically the 8th place spot now. And then that organization has free reign to field whichever 5 players they like. At the end of the day, you could get an organization that buys the 8th place spot and then just picks us up. Or they can pick Rent-Free up, or they can pick anybody up.
Unfortunately, we just don't know, which is part of what makes this whole situation so crazy. It's not clear what fueled this decision or whether Ubisoft will attempt to rectify it. Maybe they'll step in and reverse the decision, maybe they won't. Either way, when we know more, you will too. Imagine you're on a professional Siege roster who finishes second last, doesn't have to play a relegation match, and still has to hand their pro spot over to a Challenger roster. Why? Why? Because your org's abandoned you. That's why. Okay. So when eUnited backed out, oh my fucking god, this is such a rough shoot. This is such a I hate this so much. Ugh.
Dude, it's okay, man.
It just drives me fucking crazy, man. It's such an early shoot, and it's just like fucking killing me. Which is part of what makes this whole situation so crazy. Why can't I remember the next fucking line?